If you're wondering why my voice sounds so sexy and raspy all of a sudden, well, that's because I've had a flu for the last week and I've been stuck at home, bored out of my mind. But now that I'm feeling a little bit better, I thought it would be a good time to sit down and record another podcast for you, just because I have so many finished objects and I haven't recorded in a while. So I did my makeup for you. This is all fake. Like, the only accessory I had this morning was a tissue that I blew my nose into. So you'll have to indulge me and listen to me talk about my knitting for a while, but I think you'll find it quite interesting. So grab a drink and let's get to it. I think we'll start with a project that was the closest to being finished the last time we spoke, and this is my smocked pillow, which I made from a pattern called Round Cushion with Smocks by Camerose. And if you haven't tried smocking before, check out this pattern. It explains everything so straightforwardly. I think you'll be able to get it the first time around. It's not a lot more complicated than doing cables, so give it a go. Originally, this pattern is supposed to have 2 knitted sides to it, but I decided to do just one, just because this yarn is super toothy. It's, I think, too scratchy for a decorative pillow on your couch, which sometimes you can kind of lean onto. So I decided to have a fabric side to it, which proved to be a lot more difficult than knitting the knitted side, just because I haven't sewn anything in a circle before. And of course, when you're sewing in a circle, you're basically sewing on the bias, which makes the fabric really stretchy. I don't think it would have been an issue for anyone with any sewing experience, but it was like my second or third project, so it was really hard to keep my circle straight. I don't think it ended up being straight, but I stuffed this pillow with another pillow that I thrifted and then just devoured, destroyed. I think some people call it upcycling. I made sure it was really firm, and the funny thing is, I wanted this pillow to have a cinched center with like a button. When I went to install it, I realized how stupid this idea was, because this is a really firm pillow. It's not as firm now because it's been like 2 months, but at the time when I made it, it was almost fully round. I would just end up losing my tapestry needle inside. So I had 2 options. I could either unstuff the pillow and sew a button on and just stuff around the button, or I would need a tapestry needle, which was like this long, which of course I didn't have. I don't think they exist. Yeah, I had to abandon this super stupid idea. But of course, because I intended for it to have a button in the center, I did a really sloppy job weaving in my ends in the center, so I'll have to live with it. I don't think anybody except me can notice that it's done sloppily. It looks fine, especially if you look from afar. I also bound off in an I-cord just to mimic the piping border that you sometimes see on throw pillows. And it has become an integral part of my couch setup, if you can call it that. So let's just put it back there. Good enough. As you can see, I did finish my silk dress, which took forever. I originally used a pattern called Fluffy Me, which is a blouse pattern made from silk mohair, and check out this pattern, it's really good. The way I modified it was I did a second round of increases just a little bit below my waist to give it a little bit more of an A-line shape. And let me get on the couch so you can see the length. It was a little bit shorter, but of course with blocking it got a little bit longer. And I did do some shaping at the back to make the back longer than the front. My only complaint about this dress, or like regret more than complaint, is that I didn't do any back shaping. The pattern did not include any, so I just kind of rolled with it. But of course, when you're knitting in fluffy and light silk mohair, it's not a problem, but with this pretty heavy silk, the back just always drags down. I have to constantly, fiddle with it, which is fine, but it always reminds me that I should have thought about it beforehand and did some back shaping. It is what it is. I still really love this dress. I was really struggling to finish it. I didn't even count my stitches. I was afraid to, just because I thought that if I knew how many stitches I'm doing each round, it would make me lose motivation to work on it. At the end, I kind of figured out a system. I worked on it for 2 hours every day, in between working on other projects, learning how to sew, working, and just doing anything else. I just sat down every day for 2 hours, did as much as I can during those 2 hours, which usually added up to just 3 rounds, and 3 rounds in this gauge is 2 centimeters. So you can safely say that 1 hour of knitting gave me 1 centimeter of length on this dress, which again makes it kind of precious. It also looks pretty nice if I cinch in the waist with a belt or something, and I do have a lot of this yarn left over because I overestimated how much I would need. I can technically make a belt, but the thing is, I don't want to see this yarn ever again. Even touching the dress right now kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. I think I need to get some distance and kind of forget the texture of this yarn before I commit to doing a full belt from it. I am super duper happy with this dress. The feature I like the most are the sleeves, and I found a pattern for 1830 sleeve plumpers, and I might actually make some sleeve plumpers to go under the sleeves just to make them as spoofy as possible. I can't be and I won't be modest about this dress. I am super proud of it just because it took me so long to make and I really powered through at the end. You know, with the speed of 1 centimeter an hour, it really took some patience to finish, but I am really proud of it. If it wasn't for this back situation, I would have said that it's a perfect dress. I need to sit down. I made myself some hot milk, so give me a second. Let's continue. So remember that cardigan I made from the silk mohair leftovers? I did fix the button band situation. I haven't been wearing it a lot just because, first of all, it's pretty light, so you have to be in a kind of specific set of weather conditions to be able to wear it. But also, this button band looked really sloppy. It wasn't up to my standards. So I finally fixed it. It took like 20 minutes to fix all of it. So I'm happy I finally convinced or forced myself to do it. I added a row of single crochets to make the button band more sturdy. And as I mentioned, I found this video on Instagram which says that to add some structure to the button band, you need to add a smaller button on the wrong side, which I did, and it made such a difference. I really recommend this technique. So yeah, months after I finished knitting it, this project is finally complete. And speaking of lightweight mohair projects, since I recorded, I started and finished this Cobweb sweater. I really wanted to try making something like this because I realized I've never made a sweater in this of a light gauge. I found a pattern that really stood out to me, which is called light loop pattern by Other Loops. There is another pattern that is really similar in terms of the loose gauge. I forgot the name of it, but I will put it on the screen for you. But I opted out for this pattern and I'm glad I did because I've never knit the shoulder construction before and it was really fun to try. It's this kind of a dropped, sloped shoulder, but instead of just doing 2 rectangles or like 3 rectangles as usual, it has you increase, if I remember correctly. I don't remember making it, to be honest. It's a really straightforward design. There's no ribbing at the cuffs or at the bottom. When I cast it on, I decided to make the neckband in a different color, which honestly, when I was knitting this sweater, I really didn't like it. I really regretted my choice, and I was sure that when I'm done with knitting the body and the sleeves, I would go back and like unpick it and redo the neckline in the same yarn I used for the body. But now I don't hate it. At first, I also added a I-cord hem to this sweater, but as you can see, it's not there, and that's because I cast off too early. I was sure that this sweater will really drop and like lengthen with blocking, which did not happen. The measurements after blocking ended up being exactly the same, so yeah, I was really bummed out about it. I didn't want to unpick the I-cord edge because there's no way you can unpick an I-cord edge done in mohair that was already blocked. I wasn't really looking forward to cutting into my finished object, so I left it for 2, maybe 3 weeks, and then I redid it. Made it longer, cast off in just a regular long tail cast off because I couldn't be bothered. And when I finished it, I realized that I grabbed the wrong size needle. I used 7mm needles for this, lengthened the body in 6mm. You probably can see it, but I don't mind. I didn't want to redo it the 3rd time, so I just left it and called it finished. I also added some elastic to the sleeves, which I think made a lot of difference. It looks much better with the elastic on because otherwise the sleeves, because they have no ribbing, look a little bit sloppy. Sorry, I had some mohair. Of course, I had to figure out what to wear underneath the sweater because I don't want to flash people, and it didn't look particularly good with a regular bra. So I wanted to sew a bra that is similar to the bralette that the model wears on the pattern page, but I have no experience sewing bras, so I decided to kind of abandon that idea and just be on the lookout for a triangular bralette. But then I just accidentally tried this sweater on with my favorite sports bra, and it's like they're made for each other. So I don't have to sew or buy anything else. We have a beautiful duet. They're like perfect. If I have to be honest, the sweater is not super versatile just because it's not windproof, but at the same time it's pretty warm, so you can't really wear it instead of a t-shirt or a blouse. But I do like how it looks. You know, I don't have a lot of clothes that I look sexy in, so it's an interesting change for me. Never thought I would wear this sports bra as an outside garment. Want to know what else is really sexy? Winning at Yarn Chicken, because this is how much yarn I had left after I finished my t-shirt, which is my T number 1. It's a pattern I don't recommend. I'm not gonna get into it again, but no. No. Yeah, I know I made this pattern twice, but that's because I like the fit and the design and not the instructions. So I didn't really follow the instructions. I just followed the general construction and how it should look in the end. But I'm happy with the finished t-shirt. I used a hand-dyed yarn, which is, I think it's actually the first garment I made entirely from hand-dyed yarn. No, that's not true because I see another one right in front of me. Never mind that. The original design is worked in stockinette, but I chose this really simple textured pattern instead. It's knit 1, purl 1 in the first round or row, and the second round or row is just knit all stitches. Because I was working with hand-dyed yarn, I did not join the body in the round after finishing the sleeves. I kept it in panels, and it meant I had to do some seaming up, but it's fine, it's done now. I was really panicking that I would run out of yarn. I thought I made the body too big, which, to be honest, I probably did, but I just thought I would not have enough yarn for the sleeves. I unraveled part of the body, divided my yarn in half, did the sleeves, and then used the rest of the yarn on the body. And when I was finished, I realized I shouldn't have done any of that. Like, all of this was just wasted energy because I did have enough in the end, but it was still stressful. I do think I made this t-shirt quite too big, not just oversized, but too big in general. I should have made the body shorter, so I should have made this saddle portion a little bit smaller and started the sleeve sooner, but I didn't know back then. I just followed the pattern dimensions and it does look fine in the end. It's a really casual t-shirt, which is funny because it took almost as long as the dress, especially with all of the yarn alternating and with weaving in a bunch of ends, because this design, this construction requires a lot of ends to be cut and weaved in. It's funny how the project that looks super simple in the end took me quite a lot of energy to do. And it's also a project that I started, I think, in February and only now got around to finishing. Not because I wasn't working on it, just because it took so long. So not doing any projects in 3.5mm needles anytime soon. Said someone who has a work in progress in 3.5mm needles. Yeah, before I forget, I found some alternatives to the T number 1 pattern, which featured the same construction and the design is similar. And one of them is actually a free pattern, so they'll be in the description. Another garment I knit using hand-dyed yarn was my white top, which has really, really cool bust shaping, and it was really fun to knit. Alternating yarn, again, wasn't fun, and I'm starting to think that this is my least favorite activity in knitting. Maybe that's because I'm doing it wrong and I was too lazy to actually look up how to alternate yarn correctly. But in any case, I did have to alternate yarn. There was no way around it because I had a few balls of this yarn that were super, super light and some of them that were almost chocolatey black. I tried to put the darker ones at the bottom and then kind of gradually lighten the yarn as I go, and I think it worked fine. The only change I made to the pattern was that I decided I would make one halter strap instead of doing 2 straps, just because I liked how it looked better. I'm lying. It's because when I made the 2 straps, I wanted to try on the top for the first time with straps, and I kind of held them like this, looked in the mirror, and decided the top was done. The other thing is I accidentally made a twin set because this is the same yarn I used for my Corshaven cardigan. Even though for that pattern I held this yarn together with a mohair, they still look spot on. It's like they were made for each other, so I'm really happy with this little turn of events. I had to close the curtains, so I hope the lighting is okay. The sun is getting out of control, so something we had to do. And also I can feel that my voice is starting to crack, so I have to be as quick as possible because I don't think I can talk for much longer. But anyway, I found on the Ukrainian version of Facebook Marketplace yarn that absolutely stood out to me and I fell in love with just as soon as I saw the pictures. It's this beautiful mohair with some interesting colorful tweedy bits, and it's Ostermann Tartuffe. I don't think it's even made anymore, especially because it says Ostermann, West Germany. I don't think it's readily available anymore, but if you've seen a dupe of this yarn or something similar, please let me know because I really adore it. It comes in 50-gram balls and there was only 4 balls available, which means I had 200 grams to work with. And of course the t-shirt or a vest is my only option, or maybe an accessory, but I have enough accessories. I try to not make a lot of accessories anymore, and I thought of maybe making another buff tee. I already have 2, but then I decided I didn't want to make this pattern the 3rd time around. I'm still gonna make a buff tee at some point, just not from this yarn. Instead, I made weekend sleepover vest. I made the weekend vest from Petite Knit. It's also a pattern that I already knit before, but the one I made before was made from Lopi, and it was in this graphite, dark gray, black yarn, and this one is light, so it's kind of a Betty and Veronica situation. It's a great layering piece and I'm really happy I made it. It looks beautiful. I'm really modest today. I didn't expect it to be so versatile and go with everything as much as it does, and I had some troubles with this make, not with the pattern, just with this make in general. The pattern is great. I started knitting it and my approach was to do the armholes, like the body, until I finish the armholes, and then do the ribbing at the sleeves, at the neck, and figure out how much yarn I have left for the length of the body. And I did the sleeve ribbing and I tried it on and I absolutely hated it, because the thing is, my arms are quite beefy, which is fine. Like, I'm not, insecure about it or anything, but it means that I have to be careful about short sleeves I choose for myself, because anything that comes at an angle can make my hands look, arms, I'm sorry. In Ukrainian, hands and arms is the same thing, so that's the mistake I'm gonna continue making. I need to make sure that my sleeves are not at an angle, because it makes my arms look even bigger than they are, and that's why I hated the ribbing. I didn't mind it as much on the black weekend slipover, but this, it just didn't look flattering on me. So I was really bummed out, and I thought that the only option I had was to actually lengthen the sleeves. But because I only had limited amount of yarn to work with, I knew that the only thing I could modify this pattern to be is a t-shirt. And I really didn't want to have a fluffy, thick mohair t-shirt because it's just useless. It wouldn't be a layering piece as much as a vest or a slipover would be. So I kind of put the project aside to give it some thought. And then I picked it up to unravel the armhole ribbing and to check where am I in terms of length. And I really liked it without any ribbing on the armholes. So it's my vest, it's my slipover, I can do whatever I want. And nobody would even know that this vest was supposed to have ribbing, or so I thought. But the first time I wore this slipover, I went out to meet with my friend, and the first thing she said was, "Why are there no sleeves on your sweater? What happened?" But anyway, I decided I don't need any ribbing on this slipover, so I did just really simple crochet edging to give some structure to the armholes, and I made the body as long as I wanted to, and as you can see, I even have some yarn left over. So worked out really well in the end. I do have 2 works in progress to show you, but honestly, I don't feel well enough to continue talking. This flu really got to me, and I don't want to show them to you just for the sake of showing them to you. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. And I really hope this episode was interesting. I'm really grateful that you kept me company because, as I said, it's been quite boring while I was sick. And please subscribe if you want to. I know I haven't posted in a while, but that's just because I've been really invested in learning how to sew. I've spent all of the time that I wasn't knitting or working learning how to sew and just practicing as much as I can. So sewing content is coming pretty soon as I get well enough to film and talk for extended periods of time. So as always, please let me know what you're working on. I really would love to know what are your summer projects. So be sure to leave a comment, and I wish you a really good day. Goodbye.